and giving your sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
So stage is yours.
First of all, I would like to give a thanks to Flutter Vadodara and GDG Baroda for providing this wonderful opportunity to share my knowledge with you. So as you can see, today's topic is testing in Flutter. First of all, how many are you well versed about testing? Testing in general, not in Flutter, Android and something. Yeah. Anything like why you prefer testing?
To give better stability to our code or logics, like when we change something, that can be notified way before it goes to some production.
Yeah.
Like
It works as a
product.
safeguards to like maintain.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can safeguard our existing functionality.
Yeah.
Whenever
Nice
we
one.
add some new features.
Yeah. Any other points you would like to add on? Yeah, that's all. And we would like to, like integrate testing into their application. Yeah. So let me, provide some most like concepts why you should definitely integrate testing to your software development. So first, let's start with the agenda of the today's session. Can you please change the screen? Yeah, the agenda of today's session is, first of all, we will look into the importance of testing, why we should integrate this testing into our software development so that we can, provide a very high quality software to our clients and, earn बहुत पैसा, ज़्यादा पैसा. The second is, we will discuss about the unit testing, third is widget testing and integration testing. We will also look at some of the best practices that Flutter provides, and lastly we will have a bit of Q&A on the doubts and the queries. So moving forward to the first topic, importance of testing. Okay. Yeah. So first thing is testing provides, we can check for the bugs and errors and any unwanted issues in the development itself. So this will help us to provide a very good software which is robust and it is reliable. Second is we will have a quite good user experience from the users. How? See, as we already get the all the unwanted bugs and the issues in the development itself, so the software which will be providing will have a less chances of critical bugs in the production level. So it will enhance the user experience, as well as along with the software we have the support and the maintenance. So if the software has many bugs, it will eventually causes more support calls, and this will decrease the revenue of the company to maintain the software team. So if we integrate testing, what it will help is like we will have the less maintenance and also the support calls will be less. And the third is, as one of our friend told, that it is very easier to update. How? Let's take an example. Suppose one developer is working on a feature and for some reason he or she leaves the company, another developer comes, there is a certain logics, suppose 10 logics are there. It is not feasible for every developer to explain all the logic to the new developer, and it might happen that some logics the new developer think, okay, this is written just, it was written the old code or it is a very dead code, so he or she can remove it. But it was a part of very edge cases that he or she wasn't knowing. So by adding the testing, what we do is we provide a step process for the functions to load. So whenever we release our product, it will check to all the steps whether all the steps are integrated or not. And if some logics are dead, we can actually remove, or that is for sure. Also the thing is, whenever we update the new product, we will have a much more confidence over the development, because we won't have a tension of like if the software will break or something like that. So it will make the updates very easier, and it will really help in agile process. If like it will causes like many changes in the same process, like we will have go through the same process many times. Like this is the just basic of the testing. This is not related to Flutter. Every development, either be Android, iOS, requires the testing. So this was testing, and if you are willing to, if you are willing to integrate this testing, let's move forward, like what Flutter provides us with the testing. So let's get to the next slide, please. Yeah. So basically there are two types of testing. One is manual and second is automated. So what we do, like we develop an application, we install it in our phone, then we'll usually manual test, like if the image are correctly scaled, if the login function is correctly working, if there is a coupon code and it is applied to the product, if the discount logic or that math function is working correctly, that is which we test manually. But consider you are testing this every day, because testing eventually is a daily duty of a software developer. So it will be very tedious. So instead of this, Flutter provides automated testings. So if we bifurcate the Flutter app, there are only three things which we can majorly take the chunks. First is front end, or say widgets. Second is states that widgets have, and the third is its backend, or say the APIs or the thing. So according to it, we have three types of testing: unit test, widget test, and integration test. Unit tests are the low level testing, or say like they test very small amount of code. It will just check if 2 plus 3 is 5, but it is kind of important in our application, so that will be the business logic testing done by the unit testing. Second is widget testing. Suppose there is some widget you want to know if that is populated in the screen or not. We can check with the widget testing if that specific widget is populated on the screen or not. And the third comes is integration testing, where we check for the flows. Suppose we enter some username, password, and we check if by successfully login the application pushes the next screen or not. So let's look this into more detail. Like we will have a hands-on experience on like how to write the tests and all, and actually I will help you to like how to jump to the testing, so that you can have a good quality product in development. Yeah, so let's start with the unit testing, and it's hands-on. So here's a bit about unit testing. So unit testing only tests for a single function, method, or classes. It doesn't test for multiple functions or methods. So it is very helpful in testing very small code or the very logical codes. And the tests need to be done in strict isolation. By isolation, I mean we need to have a mocked environment where other factors such as boundary factors, if we know, let's take an example that app has two developers. One is developing application and other guy is developing APIs. So if something breaks, the client will definitely tell that app is not running. But if you check the code and found, okay, like it was the error on the APIs, so it's not your responsibility, it's the other guy's responsibility to fix that. So here is the environment where mostly the unit testing doesn't focus on the API testing, because it is not a part at this particular moment, but in the integration part it is definitely. So for this specific, we are testing for the mocked environment, and this is the the unit testing has very high execution speed because it runs on the CLI basis, it runs on the command prompt, whereas the integration test will need simulator or a real device to test on. So so let's get to the next, yeah, unit testing. Let's perform something. So let me first make you all guys familiar with the code base. Yeah, what is the application? Let's just first run the application so we can know what the actual application is. This looks fine. Text, yeah. Okay. So it's the decade of inspiring from the other application. Yesterday, my friend Elon Musk just have provided a pitch or maybe idea to the Meta to like enable the thread. So Meta has released the threads on basis of Twitter. So I thought let's create Humble, which is alternative to Bumble. No. Yeah. Testing is in process. So let's just log in. I have added validation where it checks the email as well as the password. It checks the length of the password if it is more than 6 or equal to the 6. If it is, it will allow you to go to the home screen. These are some of the candidates of the Bumble or Humble. And on clicking this, you will get to their profile picture and all. This is the basic flow. So how integration test or testing will help in this? Let's first, as we are on the topic of unit testing, let's just check about unit testing. We don't need to run the application, so we can quit and stop the application. To perform the testing, Flutter already provides two packages that are relevant for the testing: Flutter test and integration test. Flutter test is used in both unit testing as well as the widget testing, and it is provided by the Flutter SDK also only, and you have to import this in your div dependency. And the second is integration testing. This is package we will be using for testing the integration test that will be performed. Acha, okay. 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 So the first thing, if your code doesn't have test folder, you need to create a test folder. Then the rule or like the convention that all the developers use is, suppose there is a file named as utils, and to test this file, what developers use is like they add underscore test at the end, and they can test this file. This is just a convention, you can change if you want, but it is more helpful. And so as you can see in utils, we have two functions. First is for checking if the email is valid, and second is for if the password is valid. It's just a regex pattern, and the second is password is, as I already told, it checks about the length. If the length is greater than 6, we will pass. So let's just comment out this code so I can take you from the very starting. So if anyone know like what is the starting point of every functions or every application? Main, right? Okay. So this is our starting, and as we are doing testing, so we will definitely write test, and from the package Flutter test we will get this syntax. Test, it takes description. Description is a string. It can be as long as you want, and I prefer like it should be very long, because you can provide the whole description what the test is actually, because there will be many tests. So this will make sure that you are not confused between the two tests. So let's just take valid email returns true. So in this test case, we are going to try if we pass the valid email, it should return the true, and if it is false, we will write another case. So first of all, as we already know, it is in the mock environment, so we need to pass on the values by R. So let's just create a string email, and we will provide the valid email because that is what we are testing. And the next thing is expectation. So that is what the next function is, expect. Expect has two arguments. One is actual and second is the matcher. So the actual is the answer or the function returns that we will getting from the utils folder. So we will pass on utils. Just a minute. Let's just import this. So what we have done is we have just called on the utils class and the function of if the is email valid, and we have passed on the email which we have created by R, and we want this to be true because the email looks valid, and yeah, so this was the base testing, and like let's just run this. VS Code provides this button as well as the run. You can click either of this, and you can say there is a green check mark. And suppose like let's get to the next test where the email is invalid. So invalid email returns false. So let's now run this. You can see this also passes the case. So there is one more function which is group function in the testing. See, these are the two test cases in the same function. So we can for to making a good structure we can use group. Group will have a description of whatever you want. Let just say email validation check, and inside the group you just need to pass the test as usual. And running the group it will be like same as usual. And how this helps is there is a log, and in the console you can get all the process, like there will the naming. Let me just pull out the terminal if I can. See, the naming will be like this, the nomenclature like email validation check and then the test case. So this will help to like if there is a duplication of the name we can remove from the group. So like creating a group and making the most cases. So this was the basic unit testing. Let's get to the widget testing. Okay, so in the unit testing it was about single classes, single methods and single functions. What is widget testing? It is for single widget, and this requires a test environment. In previous we had a mock environment. It is totally void of every other thing, like we weren't dependent on any other thing. But why this test environment? Because if you are going to test text widget, you know that it will require a material app, because Flutter works on the basis of scaffold. What it does is it measures the screen and then it will draw the widget on it. So for even to test the text widget, you will be requiring the directionality which is provided by the material app. So you will need to pass the scaffold. So that is the required test environment which will provides the widget life cycle contest, and it involves more dependency than the unit testing as already said. So let's perform some widget testing. Okay, so let me just first show what is in the authentication page, so it will be more useful for testing it. So authentication page is made up of this login function, along with there is a build method including a scaffold, and scaffold has a body parameter as we all are aware, and this has a column, and inside column we have some more nested columns, and yeah, there will be text field which will take the email field, and the next will be the text field which will be taking the password field, and there will be the button which will doing the function. So this is the basic, and there is also an our application humble logo on the top. Yeah, so let's just test this. Okay, so integration testing is a bit more than the unit testing. Just let me. So, okay, let's start. So let's just write this code as well. So in the unit testing we were using test. Instead of this we will be using test widgets, and this test widgets is again from the Flutter test package. In the description whatever we like let's just write the check if image logo is displayed. The argument or the parameter which we need to pass is the widget tester, because we are testing the widget, so it will help us to provide the functionality that will be helping us to test the widgets. So let's pass widget tester, name as tester. And sorry, and this is still showing the error because passing a widget is something like you should be waiting, because the scaffold needs to be painted. So this will be pumping the widget. We will be pumping the widget to this test. So this will be an asynchronous function. So let's just write async here, and pumping widget is nothing but to test the function, or to test this case we need to first pump the widget so that it can be tested. So let's pump the widget. It is asynchronous, so we will write await tester, which is the helper which will help us, and we will pump widget. Okay, so as let's directly pump the authentication page which we want to test. And after pumping this authentication page, how we will verify if the widget has been correctly pumped. So we know there is an image, right? In that page we know there is an image, so that is our expectation. So we will let expect, and how we will find that image? We can find by multiple ways. Let's just go through one of them. So there are this we can find by icon, key, tooltip, type, widget. We can also go for the image, text, and we will be using by type because we know there is a widget which is image, network image or the image asset. So we can directly pass the image, and this is just a type. We are not passing the actual widget. Actual widget is passed by providing the parenthesis at the end of the widget. So this is more of, yeah, this is the actual widget and we are just passing the type. And after passing the type, we need to tell like what we are expecting. We are expecting an image, and there is only one image in the authentication or the starting page. So we will write finds one widget. Finds one widget. So I think, yeah, this is good, right? We should test it. Why it failed? Anyone? Yeah. Yeah, correct. We need to pass the scaffold. So let's just wrap this widget and change this to home. By this adding material app, what is the drawback is the test will be heavy on the side, because material app brings with a lot of functionality which we don't require, but to test this widget we will be requiring the material app, so the test will be a kind of heavy, but this is the only workaround, I think. And now it passes, so it makes sure like there is a widget which has the type image and it is successfully pumped. So let's look to some of the other test cases that we can go through. That's a bit long, so let me just explain. Let me just quickly explain, because we are cut off time and we will be needing that in the integration testing. So in this scenario, what we are doing is we are just pumping the widget as usual, and we have two fields, email and password, and the other is that button, login button. We are finding that by ID. We have given this same ID to the buttons and the email fields. Then we will enter text in the field which we want to be validated, and we will try to tap the login button, and after tapping the login button we will pump the widget again, and we will expect what we wanted, and this is the more better version of the widget testing. But we won't be getting to view this, how this will working. So at this scenario what helps is integration testing. Let's just get to know what is integration testing. So integration testing is test for flow in or a large part of application. It can be between two screens, three screens, whatever you want, but it tests for the specific flow. Flow such as login flow or checkout flow, any flow it can be. Integration test runs on a real device or a simulator, because it needs and it will showcase many screens, so it will be a full-fledged application, a kind of thing, and it can use to verify the app's performance, because it is running on the real device, so we can verify app performance if a particular widget or if particular flow is very heavy on the application. And the last is, it is very costliest test, but it is required at some point, because if some flows is strictly needed to be tested, then costliest or better, but we don't need bugs in our software. So let's just go with this one. So to test, to make integration testing, what we will do is we will create a folder named integration testing in just our current lib, not on lib, on the root folder of the project. And why we are not using the test folder that we created, because the integration test is a mix of widgets. So what we will be going to do is we will trying to pass the test widget, so it becomes unusual for Flutter to identify what, and it can might run into the errors which we don't want. So we will create a different folder, integration testing, and we will be going to test the login flow, whether this is working correctly or not. And the best part is we can view this will be shown to us in the real device. So let's just check this. if you see the flow, it is same as the past we checked in the widget testing. We are pumping the same widget authentication, and the tester is entering the same details, the email and password, and we are clicking the login button. It is the same, but the beauty of integration testing is that we can view this test, and this is a basic testing, but there can be more rigorous testing which can be done with the multiple pages if we want. So let's just test this case. So if you saw, like, there was a flash, and what it did was, let's just see again. It added the details in the email and password field, and it went to the next screen. So what it did is like what a normal user would do. It will enter the email and password and went to the next screen. And what we tested in this case was that, just a moment. Yeah. The expect thing provide us with many functionalities. One of them is find one thing, and other is find nothing. So after performing all the thing, after tester pump is nothing but a set state method, if in layman terms, for testing. So if we do something like changing the state or changing the notifier in the real application, we can use tester.pump, and if it is very tedious process, we can also go for the pump and settle, so that more long process can be done with the pump and settle. Or the changing between the screens is definitely recommended to use pump and settle instead of pump. And after the expectation, what we have expected is there is a widget by widget, and we are asking like if we have nothing. So like, yeah, if the authentication page was, and if the validation was correct, it will be passed to the next screen, which was the home screen, and there will be the no widget in this tech trace, so it will be passing like there is no find, like it won't find such a widget in the stack tree. So this is all about integration testing. Let's just look out for the best practices that we can have during the testing. First is, we should always write the testable code. By testable code is like if you are familiar with the dependency injection or something. Let me just give a quick view how small demo. So on the home page we had our Bumble users, and we have we can directly load using this API service. It's just normally a service, and there is a method called process. This process will call this fetch data, but what we are doing is we are decoupling this method. So instead of calling this fetch data directly, we are passing through a data processor. So if we require something processing, we can do here. And what this will help us, we can use this function directly in our unit testing, so that we can get if the APIs, or if you want to test if the function is working or not. And we can also use Mockito library, which will help us to mock the actual data, so that we won't be having the issues of if the APIs or the backend is not working. So this was like to making testable codes. Third is having the descriptive test name. As already told, like you should use a big description, because there will be many test cases, and by looking at the failing test, it should be really easy for us to identify if which was the test that has been failed. And structuring and organizing test is simply as like grouping the test and whatever you want to use as the structure or organize that your organization is performing. And testing suite. So what is testing suite is, there are a couple of testing, like unit testing, widget testing, and integration testing. Some of you might be wondering like which is the best. It's always not about the best, it's about like balance. We have balanced that, and like same wise our software also need the balanced suite of testing. So on the besides there is a pie chart which shows like 70% of the test should be unit test, or the test should have 70% of the unit test, and 20% of them should be the widget test, and 10% can be of integration testing. Why? As we saw, like integration test was so good, but in the reality, if we want to test all the flows with that, it will be very costly. And every build, if we are using CI/CD, if you are knowing, and if we have integrated pipeline for testing, then it will be very costly, and we don't want all flows. So we will just make sure like the flows which are very important can be tested by the integration testing. Second is the confidence. The low level confidence which we get from the unit testing is much more greater than the integration testing. And the third is execution speed. As already told, the unit test is very quick, widget is also quick, and the integration is slowest of the all. But yeah, this is the testing suite, and we should use test driven development. Test driven development is, I think, like we don't use usually. I also don't use, because it is very tedious. In this process, what we do, we write the test cases first. So what we will do, we will write all the cases for, let's say the example we had that email validation. What we will do, we will write all the 4 cases, like if the email is valid, not valid, null, or if it's empty. And on after doing that, we will run the case. Definitely at that time it will fail, because there is no such function or created at the moment in the app. And when we will create that functionality, we will be requiring to pass all the logic. So if our logic misses, like on the something, if we are not checking the null, because that is not an option, but if we are having an issue with the null, so it will be checked while the test. So writing test first instead of the main course is the most suitable for the larger products or the high-end quality code what we want. And this was all about the best practices that we can go for the testing. Yeah, time for Q&A. Any questions or yeah, sure.
Can I explain that finds nothing and finds one?
Yeah, sure. To make it just easier, I would switch to widget testing. It will be easier and quick.
So in this case, I have 2 images on the screen.
Yeah, that can be done. There is also a thing which is find n widgets. It takes the parameter n, which can be like the number of widgets you want. Whatever, like if you want to verify that 2 widgets are like the are there, then you can verify by with this. And there are also other function like you can verify by the IDs if you have such more strict keys.
And if I want to check which image is placed in that image widget?
See, yeah, that is not a part of like unit testing, as in which in the unit testing we just check if this particular small low level code is there or not. So if you want to do this, you can go for the higher level test. Definitely, this is just to show that every cuts and pieces of the code is there. So this is one of that part.
Actually, you can like you want to test if your image is into a specific container. Let's take an example. Okay, so that is possible. So that's a concept called as ancestor and descendant.
Yeah.
So ancestor, you have 2 paths. Ancestor, that means you are looking up the widget tree, and you are let's take an example. You have a container, you have a padding, and you have an image. So what you will do, you will find by descendant which will have a container, padding, and then your image. And your second image is placed directly into a padding, a separate one. So you will directly be find as a padding's descendant, not a
But I
padding.
want to check which image is placed in that.
So that can be done by the ID.
That's the key.
Key. Yeah, so ID.
So by image, as in like what content of the image you are talking
What
about.
is the content of that image?
But if
Correct or not?
if you check by ID, that is the same thing, right? If there are 2 images, one is like say on the authentication page. Yeah, see, if there are 2 images, Yeah, sure. Uh, authentication.
So by mistake, if you place Bumble instead of Humble, then
See,
you should
that is
never be tested, right?
definitely, definitely. But okay, that is not in a part of, I guess. No, it is not a part of this test. It is a kind of runtime error if you look at the things. These are the human errors.
हमारे टेस्टर तो भी छोड़ के चला जाता गाली तो डेवलपर ही खाता है
That is the flow in manual testing.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of checking image here?
No, we aren't checking image. Like we are just finding if that image. See,
Yeah, we are just making that thing sure that image is displayed.
yeah,
Doesn't matter what is the content in it, but
Yeah.
image is there. If content is different, then there may be a possibility that API give us the wrong image. Because normally in production application we fetch the image from network.
So there are setting image like logo of the
yeah. Use case will be like if there is a like a logo of the company and some developers want to remove that. Okay, like let's just remove it's a resignation period or like whatever is the last, like let's just remove and went off. That can be tested directly instead of going to the production level and doing the manual testing. So this is the more suitable use cases where it checks if that widget is there in the page or not. Any other Q&A? Yeah. Okay. List yeah. Basically, it's a part of widget testing, whereas in the expect you can see instead of this. Suppose
Can we check the overflow?
no.
Major pain points वही है.
Overflow is for the responsive design, right? So it will be, I think, checked in the integration testing. When you will pump the widget, instead of pumping the widget, there will be error. So it won't pump to the next content because no, like in the integration. In the integration testing, we click on the button, so it is same as like the manual testing, but more of automated tests.
No, but you are overflown out of the screen.
Because when
Yeah.
you run, it's not crashing.
Yeah.
Your pump will consider.
Yeah, pump will be considered definitely.
Next
Pump.
year will be loaded, so it won't fail the case.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I don't think like if the logs. Okay, yeah, makes sense. And you mentioned about the list, right? List is normally just you can have the content of the list. You can expect here, and suppose if we have user. It's normally it's very simple. If you are checking, yeah, it's like a DIY. You can play with the find thing, and there are many more things and the parameters which can be done. Any more? Yeah.
I have two actually.
Yeah, sure.
User dot length is equals to.
No, it was just a showcase. There was a query. Yeah.
Like to continue his query, like what about widget workflow? Can we check what is the widget size or something like that?
Yeah. See, this is a very good question because the testing is done in a short pixel. It is about I think 800 into 600. So the screen size is very small. So if you go for the widget testing and the unit testing, if something like if you are finding for an image and it is out of the reach, it will fail because the testing is small. It is like a limitation, or like from the Flutter there is this limitation where the size is small for the testing because it will help to quicker the test. Else if we load for the very large screen, it will take much area and all the resources, so it will be not a good way to test the application. Yeah. Define the as in area is 800 to 600, I think. Not sure. Yeah. No, I don't think we can. We can, I think, add scroll listeners, and if we want, like that can be done, but not like the area can't be customized.
Second question is, I don't know if I missed because I was not in the first part.
Yeah.
The term called test coverage. So is there any way that we can find a number or percentage like this many coverages already covered, something like that?
Test coverage as in
So for example, if I write 10 unit test cases,
Mhm.
and my code can have 100 test cases, so it should show a 10% code coverage kind of thing.
yeah, like this is like, if you are talking about this, like there are like on the side of the VS Code there is already this functionality,
Okay.
and if you are using CI/CD by GitHub or anything, there is a log. You will already get a log, and with all the emails and all the thing, like this much or this percentage of the code has been tested, and yeah, all the bug. Yeah.
So there is one tool, it's a smart tool we are using in our company. So there basically it's take your entire code, and when you write your test ID or something like that, so it checks the entire code and give you the answer about how many code is testable and how many test cases is written in the code and how many it's missing. So it gives you percentage. Code is Sonato, it's a
Sonato.
Yes. There's one code, there's one tool as well named as LCO. When you run the test, just when you run the test via terminal, like Flutter test hyphen coverage,
Yeah, just a minute.
and that will generate your report.
Yeah, that
And
I want.
another,
Okay.
you have two commands. One is to generate the HTML file, and another is to view in the browser.
Okay.
You can view in the browser.
That will be great.
Yeah.
Double dot.
कहाँ पे? अच्छा हो गया, या You mentioned about some arguments, right?
Yeah, just Flutter
Yeah.
space test space hyphen coverage.
Hyphen coverage. Yeah, do hyphen.
Coverage. Just
These are basically code coverage report.
Okay.
it will execute your test in a coverage mode.
Okay.
Yeah, some test failed.
Some tests are failing.
Yeah. Which was that?
Yeah, just fine if we can remove the rest.
Okay, like here we had finds, we only had one, right? Right.
It's a longer command, so gen HTML,
Okay.
gen HTML.
We need to write. Yeah, sure. Why not? Please. No worries.
It will scratch your system.
Airdrop use करना
Airdrop की command में नहीं है.
text file में जाना
Okay, I need to install that Gen HTML, right? Okay. So it is inbuilt by. It will be like a part of web, right? Gen HTML.
Maybe it will be part of Flutter SDK.
Flutter SDK.
Probably.
to install करना पड़ेगा ना एक बार
Yeah, definitely.
Gen HTML.
You know, if you have any test.
But it will take time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I will explore.
definitely. Any more questions?
one question to me.
Uh,
One of our organization tell us that you are working as a freelancer.
yeah.
So how you convince your client to go with the unit testing?
I never convince.
Because in real life production, what is
Yeah.
happening in India is testing take too much time. So
Yeah.
should directly go for development.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So
See,
how you convince any of your elder person, whomsoever you responsible to answer,
yeah,
that I want to go for a testing approach first.
first of all is you need to, avoid Indian clients. That's the thumb rule.
But our employer is Indian. What can we do?
But yeah, because in the US or the Western markets, they believe in code quality and not on the budget. See, a fact about freelancing is if you have an hourly rate of $5 or $10, and there are developers in the range of $20 to $30 per hour, the US clients will prefer them over 5 or 10 because they prefer in code quality rather than saving the money. And that's the whole mindset different thing between the Indian clients and the US clients. So
No, but our client are foreign client, not
Yeah,
Indian.
okay.
Client, but employer is Indian.
so
So employer charge in terms of, as you said, that employer charge our $25, but
Yeah.
they tell us to finish this work as soon as possible, so they can reuse us on a different project.
yeah, for that you need to have you need to change to freelancing.
Because like when we see the service-based companies, right, they don't care about technical test case.
Yeah.
And we work in a product-based company, so we have to write test case because we have to maintain product after
Yeah.
design.
Open source also works in the same.
So please share any referral you have.
So I would like to add one thing here. Like my company is product-based company and service-based company too. So we provide both the things. So yes, he's correct that on product-based company you have to work on a product for a longer period. So you have to write those things. But in service-based company there are certain products that the service takes years. Like you continue working on those products longer period, like 2-3 years. When you know that this product will be at your company with the service contract for longer period, then you have to raise those things first. You have to convince your managers that if you don't invest right now, it will be a loss later. So you have to first convince them that if you want to really make profit, then invest it now. So it's like mutual fund. You have to invest right now and wait for 2 years. That outcome will come after 2 years.
Yeah, that I'm aware of. But what if manager is not in the mood? If
इंडिया में लोग स्टॉक मार्केट से ज़्यादा खुश होते हैं म्यूचुअल फंड से नहीं.
So the
जल्दी
thing
पैसा
is,
चाहिए.
as a developer, I always I face these issues with many managers whenever I work. Their mindset always first is the profit.
Yes.
And then
Exactly.
the quality. They
Exactly.
want to focus on quality, but their first focus is always
Or
profit.
you will
So
share
always
Janet
tell them,
HTML?
going this way, you will face the loss, or you will face these issues. And even if they decide whether let's not do this, let's do it this way only, I let them do. And once there is an issue, when there is a loss, I make them realize that okay, that's why I wanted to tell you. And then they realize and then we change
Airdrop
the
is yeah.
So I have done this in my with my managers and it worked, but it takes time. You have to be patient.
Just a minute.
बहुत क्रैश कर.
When they see loss, they will invest correctness.
Okay, opened. So like the report looks like. Okay, sure. Just a minute.
Share this, it's fine. You can show.
Indian client.
Personal project, I would say. So just show the report.
Yeah. So it's an extension, right? A kind of
It's a
open source package.
tool, I would say.
Okay, yeah,
open
yeah.
source.
Okay.
So this is how it will look. So this is your top level. So I have only SRC. So in that it will show you the report. This is the HTML. Just you have to see about LCOIN and Gen HTML.
Okay.
It's simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
Thank you. So yes, we have come to the end of the session. You can follow, all the stakeholders of this sessions, GDG Baroda, Flutter Vadodara, and me myself. If you want to know more tips about freelancing and want to connect about how it is a good than regular, jobs.
It's good to see that a freelancer doing unit testing. That's good.
It was just that Ayush bhai told like you need to have some advanced topics. So I said, okay.
Or else he might have all the foreigners.
Right? When you are writing test cases, you cannot
So for you, sorry, what's your name? For you,
Yeah.
if he becomes manager, then the same thing will happen.